How is it going, guys? Welcome back to another episode of Cooking with Clams. I'm Will, and I'm here on Long Island. It is an unseasonably warm day. It's about 62 degrees, which is, not normal. We're in the first week of January here. Now, I've been trying to go herring fishing. There hasn't been a lot of herring around. I haven't seen anyone really catch anything. I got one report back from Sheepshead Bay, so we're gonna head there tomorrow. Today, I'm at Target Rock Wildlife Refuge, and we're gonna go down. There's a nice trail. You go down the trail, and then there's a big open beach to the Long Island Sound. And we're gonna go down there and collect some seaweed. Well, we're gonna see if there is any seaweed, because again, we're in January. There should be rockweed. And then with the rockweed, I'm gonna tap into my Sicilian roots, and we're gonna make gnocchi and brodo. So it's basically just gonna be potato dumplings in broth, and we're gonna make the broth from the seaweed. So get my boots on so that it's gonna be really muddy down there, but let's head down to the beach. All right, so as you can see all around me, I found my rockweed. It's here year-round, so seaweed, much like any other plant in the Northeast, has a period, and during the spring is when you're gonna find all of your bright green sea lettuce and other varieties. Rockweed is here year-round. The only difference would be the very tips of it. Right now, it's pretty stunted, but come springtime, those tips will be very long and they'll be a lighter color. It's dried out and used as a powder, as flavoring. It's usually, if you've had oysters in the Northeast, on that ice, the oysters are usually on top of rockweed. It's used to make tea, and it's used in broth. Now, one really important thing that I want to point out and just make sure, there is no seaweed that is poisonous, but if the water is polluted that the seaweed is growing in, it can make you sick. So what I went ahead and did, and what you should do if you're going to forage seaweed, is you can call your local DEC or FWC or whoever and find out if there are any shellfish closures in the area. If there are, then that means the seaweed would be contaminated as well. I called this morning. This area is open. The water is good. Our seaweed is good. So there are a couple of different species out here. I'm going to stick with the rock kelp. This almost looks like sugar kelp. And now here's something else about seaweed. So I think you're going to start seeing it pop up more and more as a superfood. The nutrients are amazing, and it really is beneficial to us physically to eat seaweed. It's a great source of minerals and nutrients. But there is one other thing about seaweed that's fascinating. It's something they're doing out here on Long Island. In Shinnecock Bay in particular, they're planting sugar kelp, not for human consumption, but they're finding that much like oysters, seaweed is filtering the water, and you can actually bring polluted water back to life, to a healthy environment for other sea life by planting a bunch of seaweed, because the seaweed will absorb all of that pollution and actually clean the water. So pretty incredible. But again, that's why you have to be careful, because it is filtering the water. So you want to make sure that where you're harvesting from is clean waters. But I think it is an amazing thing that here's this thing that no one is planting it, tending to it, and it is thriving. And I think that is why you're going to see it in the future as a sustainable food source. If you come to the beach and you don't find a flat rock and skip it, what'd you even come to the beach for, you know? So just to show you what I meant by the rockweed having the full tips on it, I found some here. Check this out. So this is what it normally looks like. And these tips, those tips are more so what people are going for. They have a little more flavor, they're a little more tender, but you're not really going to find them like this time of year. So we're going to work with what we got, but I am seeing some that have some blooms on them, so we might grab some more. That's pretty good. So we're going to make gnocchi and brodo, which is basically just potato dumplings in a broth. So there's only two things we have to make. We have to make our dough with our potatoes, and we have to make our broth. So for the broth, I have half an onion, 2 cloves of garlic, 1 carrot that is peeled, bay leaf, and then I have here celery stalk, but I'm gonna do one thing to it before I put it in, and that's just run a vegetable peeler over the back to take off the really sinewy strands, because I'm gonna pull this and the carrots out and we're gonna blend them and put them back into our broth to give our broth a little bit of body. And I don't want those strands in because sometimes they don't blend all the way and then you end up with what ends up being kind of like hair. And then here I have my rockweed. Now I put seawater in here, and that's what I'm rinsing it in, because I don't want to rinse it with fresh water. I want all that salt content to go into my broth. And then I did take some of the kelp as well. We're gonna add that into the dish later. We're gonna keep it raw, chop it up really fine, and just put it on top. So I'm gonna put that aside. Now we're gonna move this over to the oven. Now I'm gonna put this on high heat. Add water. We're gonna bring this up to a boil and then bring it down to a simmer and let it simmer for 2 hours. All right, my potatoes are done. We are going to rice the potatoes. Now the reason why I'm doing this is because this will grate the potatoes, spread them out, and as you see, all this steam is rising. All the steam coming out is the moisture coming out of our potatoes. So that means, you guessed it, less moisture. I have to add less flour to make our gnocchi, and therefore will result in a much lighter gnocchi. Have you ever had gnocchi and they're kind of heavy and gummy? Well, the reason why is because too much flour. And this eliminates that. And now this I'm going to spread out and let cool until all that steam comes out. So one thing I want to point out as well is that I used Yukon Gold potatoes, and the reason why is because they have a much lower moisture content. So you're already starting off on the right foot with getting the moisture out of the potatoes. If you don't have a food mill, you could use a ricer. If you don't have a ricer, you could actually just use a cheese grater. But the key is to do it when the potatoes are hot so that you get that steam to come out. So now that the potatoes are completely cooled, we're going to make our dough. Add a little bit of salt, some fresh pepper. And what I have here is actually some dried seaweed. This is from our trip in Ireland. I'm going to add that. And then I have here just one beaten egg. And I'm going to add flour as I go so that I don't add too much. And you want your finished dough to look almost like cookie dough. Okay, now this we're going to set aside, put a towel over it, and let it sit covered for about 15 minutes. That's what I mean by cookie dough. Once they float is when they're almost done. All right, so you have a broth made from rockweed, from Target Rock.
Oh, okay.
And then there's a little bit of kelp in the broth as well. That's what the black strands are. And then potato gnocchi, and in the gnocchi is the dried seaweed from Ireland.
Ah, okay.
And in case you don't know, this is Mama Clams.
Hi.
All right, dig in.
Oh, is that my bowl?
That's yours.
All right.
The gnocchi are good.
They're like clouds.
They're light. They're really light. That's why, so that was one of the reasons I said don't measure out the flour. You're probably going to use half a cup to a cup, but go slowly with the flour because it's always going to be different. If it's humid out, if it's dry out, it's always going to be different. But
Okay, I do have to say that and I told this to Will before, my first experience with gnocchi was when I used to babysit a little girl for an Italian couple, and Millie, the mom, made her own gnocchi. From what I remember of it, this is much better.
Whoa. Sorry,
And
Millie.
Will's only half Italian.
Well, it's interesting because, I mean, the entire broth is made from the seaweed. There's kelp in there. It's salty. Taste some of just the broth.
Yeah,
but
I did.
It's unctuous.
Yeah, it's not overly salty. It's not
No,
offensive.
And it's not overly seaweedy, if that's a lack of a better term. But this just shows you when the fishing's bad, the ocean will provide, and you can still make a delicious meal out of what the ocean gives you. So, all right, we're going to sit down and not stand at the counter and eat. And if you like this episode, hit like, hit subscribe, and I'll see you on the next one.
Thank you.